Hey guys, gals, and non-binary pals, I'm your host Hannah, and this is Under the Scrubs. Time to unclench your jaw and stop your doomsday scrolling on TikTok because your favorite podcast is on now. Not gonna lie, it's been one of those weekends where it feels long, but it's also like super short. We went to like this wedding expo, and I think it just really highlighted the difference between my fiance and I, because I don't like people. I get incredibly uncomfortable when you have like those people come up to you and they try to like sell you stuff. Like, I will give you whatever you want. Here's my debit card. Just please stop talking to me, right? And they did not have as much cake tasting as I wanted. I ate some sketchy ravioli, but you know, I'm here to tell the story, so didn't die. We did our engagement photo shoot, so I'll probably post when we get our sneak peeks. I'll post those up on my personal IG whenever we get them. And then I got slapped with the realization that our wedding date is quickly approaching, and I just keep ignoring everything, hoping that it goes away except for the honeymoon. And that's really what I'm here for. We are here today with our first true crime episode. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a personal fan of true crime overall. And this was one of the first stories I'd ever heard about a surgeon being convicted for how they essentially did their job. But the more I learned about him, the more I thought, hell yeah, brother, this guy really sucks at his job. So before I dive in, though, I'm going to call my timeout. Just a, quick hot take for this week's timeout. I'm not someone where I post on social media a lot, right? I'm trying to get better for the sake of my podcast and like trying to get myself out there. But I think just regular posting is not my forte. You can send me Facebook messages, and 99% of the time, I'm not going to see them. I'm probably not going to read them. Most of the stuff I put on my Instagram story, it's really not that deep. It's usually something sarcastic or kind of funny, haha. But here's what chaps my hide. If you're going to post your whole relationship online, you know, how you guys met, you're in love, I can tell when you guys are fighting because of some of the petty stuff you post, all of that, right? We need to normalize. You have to post when you guys break up and why. You have made me an involuntary historian of your whole relationship, and now I need to know what happened so I can go tell my fiance. And I'm proud to admit I have made him quite the little gossiper. But if I have to go to him and explain the whole lore behind your posts, and all of a sudden, like, whoever you're dating is just wiped from your profile, I need to be able to share with him what happened. I got to complete the loop. Please and thank you. Okay, so diving in this week, my resources are Time Magazine, ProPublica, Fifth Avenue Healthcare Services, Texas District and County Attorneys Association, and Oxygen. Christopher Duntsch, the man whose surgeons couldn't believe that somebody gave this guy a license to operate, and the same man whose family and friends couldn't believe that he was as bad of a surgeon as people said he was. He's remembered by high school friends and teammates as this, all-American guy. He's competitive, kind of volatile, driven, when he sets his mind to do something, and he's going to want to do it better than anyone, whether that's drinking, yikes, wrestling, weightlifting, honestly, anything, he's not going to back down. He got a football scholarship to Jackson, but he's like, I need more. So he went to go try for the Colorado State Rams and made it as a walk-on. He met his bestie there, Chris Dozois, who was also a linebacker. Chris Dozois remembers that his work ethic and determination to be the best was just out of this world. They'd run drills over and over again. Even if he failed at it, he'd ask for feedback. And like, even after practice was over, he would be running them again and again and again and again, and he would not quit. He seems like the kind of guy that you're thinking he's going to be successful in the future. He attended University of Tennessee for medical school. He reconnected with a few high school buddies of his when he moved back to Tennessee. One of them was Cooper Bailey. He was actually a roommate with Duntsch and remembers him talking about how, I'm going to be a neurosurgeon. I'm going to cut into people's heads. I'm going to do surgery. And Cooper and their other buddies would laugh and be like, dude, you're never going to work on my head. And Duntsch would honestly get offended. But they'd tell him, you're the type of guy that would end up sewing something into my head. Damn the foreshadowing. Duntsch started medical school in 1995, and he became a rising star for neurosurgery. His school lab studied stem cells that might contribute to malignant brain tumors, and he actually thought these stem cells can be repurposed to help revitalize discs for people with back pain. He actually filed patents with 2 other scientists, was raising money, all while going to school with this. He would actually go on to start a company called Dysgenics that used the stem cells for the disease disc rejuvenation. He got an old friend, Rand Page, and a former medical school supervisor, Dr. Kevin Foley, to be investors. Now, this was probably one of the first red flags. So Page believes that Duntsch really banked on Dysgenics to become rich. And so when he was booted, well, spoiler alert, he gets booted. When he gets booted out of the company, he turns back to medicine as a way to get money. So it didn't really take long for the business partners to decide that Duntsch was way too problematic for a long-term relationship. They'd go out to like dinner meetings, and Duntsch would be consuming like half a dozen drinks in an hour, even in the morning time. He did not discriminate when it came to that. Once when Page went into Duntsch's office to get paperwork, he found an open desk drawer that had cocaine piled on top of a mirror with a rolled up dollar bill. He was confronted several times about this, and Duntsch would just tell him, "Don't get involved in my personal life, mind your business." An old girlfriend of Duntsch gave a deposition to a Dallas attorney, and she said that there was a weekend, it was actually his birthday weekend, that she saw him doing drugs like LSD and cocaine on top of drinking. He'd be partying throughout the night, knowing full damn well the next morning he had to be at the hospital doing rounds. And I mean, she's watching him do lines of coke, LSD all night. He is absolutely shit-faced. But then he made rounds the next morning. I don't know how he did it, but he made it to the hospital the next morning. But then he came back and he would pick up right where the party was. Sir, it's the morning time. I need you to chill, okay? So in 2010, Rand Page got a call about a prescription that he had ready at this pharmacy, and he had zero idea what they were talking about. He drove to the pharmacy and learned that Duntsch had been writing prescriptions in Rand's name, picking them up and paying in cash. So Dysgenics has had enough of him at this point. They kicked him out. They sued him over money and stocks so they can just like cut all ties with him. So now he has to turn back to medicine to make good money. He finished his residency and he was looking to Texas for any jobs that he could find in 2010. The first place he was hired to, Minimally Invasive Spine Institute, and they were so impressed with his resume. They actually called the school and his former supervisor to verify that like this is real. He received his MD, his PhD. He was like super smart, almost overqualified, very impressed. The institute was so impressed that they gave him an advance on his $600,000 salary, and then they put him up in a luxury suite hotel in Dallas to practice neurosurgery. But Chris wasn't going to move without taking one of his high school besties, Jerry Summers, remember that name. And then he had offered Jerry a job to help build a clinic. So Jerry did the promotion, advertisement, and purchasing. Duntsch would also go on to take Wendy Young, who was his girlfriend, and she was pregnant. He took her to Dallas as well. It did not take long for the Institute, though, to not be impressed by Duntsch anymore. The breaking point for boss, Dr. Michael Rumlawi, said that Duntsch was supposed to be on call for a patient, and he skipped off to Vegas and missed hospital rounds. At this point, he hadn't hurt any patients yet, but his behavior was bad enough that they fired him. So Duntsch moves on to open his own practice. So you'd think that because they have surgical privileges at this Baylor Plano hospital admin would ask him, "Hey, why did you fire him?" But they never did, and honestly, this could have saved a lot of patients. So August of 2011, there's a nurse practitioner named Kimberly Morgan. She's looking for a job, and her friend, BJ Ellison, calls her up, says, "Hey, there's a new neurosurgeon hiring. Kimberly is coming back from a trip," and she goes straight from the plane to the interview. She is infatuated by Duntsch. She got a big old fat crush on him. Thinks he's going to go places, going to make a shit ton of money, sign her up, she's in. So at the time, Duntsch is living with his girlfriend, Wendy, who's 5 months pregnant, and he did his best to keep these two women apart. According to Kimberly, Wendy was just a secretary and her husband was going to be coming to Texas soon. And according to Wendy, Kimberly was just his assistant. But at that point, they were already sleeping together. He would send some crazy ass emails in the middle of the night that just rambled. He'd have crazy narcissistic stuff in there about like people who know him put him either being God, the Antichrist, or Einstein. Because how can I do anything I want and cross every discipline boundary line like it's a playground and never lose? I'm ready to leave the kindness, goodness, love, and patience that I mix with everything else that I am and become a cold-blooded killer. The sad fact is that I would go faster, do better, and catch more respect and honor by fucking everyone in the brain, emotionally and mentally, controlling them in a manner that borders on abuse, taking no prisoners, and sending everyone in my way, and especially that fucks with me, to hell. Sir, what? I know some psychiatrists that would love to talk to you. I'm just going to put that out. If you need their number, you let me know, okay? Kimberly at one point found a jug of vodka underneath his desk and was trying to scold him over it, saying like, hey, this is against the rule for Baylor's Planos building. He wrote her off. He's like, they're never going to do anything to me. During a Christmas party, an office worker found a baggie of white powder in the bathroom, and Kimberly does admit in her deposition that she flushed said baggie down the toilet and did not tell anybody, and that partners at the Spine Institute didn't know that that was going on, this behavior, already, but obviously they'd already cut ties with him due to his disturbing behavior. So at this point, Duntsch has operating rights at Baylor Plano. The first victim of Duntsch was Kenneth Fennell, who was left with chronic pain after Duntsch operated on the wrong part of his back. He got a second surgery by Duntsch, and it would actually go on to paralyze both of his legs. Fennell required months of rehab to walk with a cane and couldn't walk more than 30 feet or stand for more than a few minutes at a time. Lee Passmore was the second victim, referred to Duntsch by his pain specialist. Now, they needed a vascular surgeon, and his name was Dr. Mark Hoyle. He actually physically tried to stop Duntsch during the procedure because Duntsch had cut out a ligament around the spinal cord that isn't normally touched in a back surgery. He had misplaced spinal hardware. He stripped a screw that basically kept the hardware in place so they could not remove it at all. It was impossible. Passmore bled so much, Hoyle remembers the operating field submerged in a lake of red. Hoyle would actually end up scrubbing out and leaving the OR in the middle of the case, vowing to never work with Duntsch ever again. And Passmore's surgery had happened 2 weeks after that weird-ass email that he had sent to Kimberly about being a cold-blooded killer. Barry Morgulov was next. He goes to see Duntsch as he really wanted a quick fix for this pain that he was having, and his original doctor told him that he just needed to lose weight and exercise. Dr. Randall Kirby was called to assist Duntsch, and Kirby actually recognized Morgulov as, hey, that's the guy that, takes care of my pool. So they're at the scrub sink, scrubbing in, they're getting ready. Duntsch starts telling Kirby that most of the spine surgery in Dallas was done inappropriately, and he's here. He's going to clean up the town now. They were doing an anterior lumbar fusion, and Kirby felt like this is probably one of the easiest things for neurosurgeons to do. Instead of using a scalpel to remove the diseased disc, Duntsch started using a grabber called the double action and just basically started digging. So this is where you get into some trouble when you start digging into the vertebral bodies on either side of the disc because there's a shit ton of bleeding. He was basically gouging into the bone of the spine. Kirby's telling him, whoa, you need to pump your brakes. There's a shit ton of bleeding. We need to get this under control. Duntsch is like, nope, I've done thousands of these. Stay in your lane. I know what I'm doing. Kirby had already heard the rumor that Duntsch didn't know the spine, but now he is saying it in person in real life. Kirby actually walks out of the OR. He told the hospital chief of surgery what had happened. This guy's super incompetent, and he's like, there's no way Duntsch is going to last very long. Did anything happen because of that? No. So in PACU, when waking up, Morgulov knew right away something's not right. He felt like he'd been hit by a train. His pain was on a whole different level. With the previous history of narcotic abuse, Duntsch still prescribed him and ordered him a shit ton of pain meds to be given, to the point that he actually was like, sorry, I actually can't go any higher on them and you're kind of shit out of luck. During a follow-up with Duntsch, Morgulov described the pain that he was still in, and Duntsch said, no, that's a new issue. You're going to need another MRI. Morgulov is like, nah, this guy, something's not right. So he goes back to his original surgeon, and he learns that the digging into the vertebrae had left bone fragments in his spinal canal, compressing a nerve root. Today, as scar tissue still builds up from the surgery, he continues to lose function of the left side of his body. Nothing can fix him, and now he's been robbed of experiences with his daughter growing up, like helping to ride a bike, running alongside of her when she gets her training wheels off. He can't play soccer with her, can't be a coach, he can't be active with this baby girl. He even checked himself into a psychiatric facility at one point to keep himself from killing himself. He went as far as putting a gun into his mouth. Now, Jerry Summers. I said remember this name because this is Duntsch's bestie and his right-hand man. This guy was basically caring for Duntsch the entire time they lived together in Texas. So Jerry calls his girlfriend, Jennifer Miller, and he tells her, hey, Chris is going to fix my neck. He had an old accident from football, and it was aggravated by a car wreck. So Jennifer flies in the night before to help take care of him. They're sitting there in the kitchen, kind of, shooting the shit. And Chris goes, hey, do you want to see the MRI films? She's like, yeah, why not? So he pulls them out, holds them up to the light, and is explaining what he's going to do and, points and all that stuff. So she's like, wow, that's really cool. Okay. Jerry woke up after surgery and could not move. Chris told the girlfriend, well, it's unexpected bleeding, but he's going to be fine. Okay, Jerry had to go back in for emergency surgery around midnight because the swelling was not going down in his spinal cord and he needed to alleviate the pressure. Well, he was right about the pressure. Duntsch had damaged the blood vessels and packed the space with surgifoam. So much surgifoam that it was actually constricting his spine, and he had removed so much bone, Jerry's head wasn't attached securely to his body. So at this point, it is too late to have another surgeon step in and help Jerry. Chris is telling Jerry's mom that, he's going to be okay within a week. Swelling just needs to go down. Jerry's telling the ICU nurse that no, something's wrong, and Chris isn't telling him anything. Jerry lays in bed for days, just feels like he's being kept in the dark. He kept telling his girlfriend, please kill me, I want to die, please kill me. Finally, Jerry one day snaps and he starts screaming and yelling. I thought maybe ICU delirium, but he is yelling about doing 8 balls of cocaine with Duntsch the night before surgery. But then when he's testifying in court, he said he only did that to try and get Duntsch's attention. But honestly, who knows? Jerry ends up getting the news that he's going to be permanently paralyzed, and he's got to live the rest of his days out in a nursing home. Jerry's mom brings him back to Memphis, but it's supposed to be kept from the girlfriend. Jerry's dad's side of the family ends up telling the girlfriend after 5 months where he is, and she goes to see him, and he is totally unrecognizable. He used to be a big guy, and now he is skin and bones because he has stopped eating. So she starts caring for him for the next year, shows up every day, eventually actually is able to have him move in with her so she could care for him. But Jerry was soon consumed by the rage that he felt towards being trapped in this useless body. He started turning his power chair into a battering ram. Glass, metal, people were not safe. His girlfriend actually still has scars from his wheelchair. He started taking his rage and frustration out on the girlfriend, which obviously led to them splitting up. Jerry goes on to actually pass away from an infection related to his status as a quadriplegic in 2021. So right after Jerry's surgery, there's rumors going around. The Baylor CEO orders Duntsch and Kimberly to take a drug test. Kimberly, hell yeah, right away takes it. Duntsch stalled. The first time he went in, he said, ooh, I got lost in the lab. The next day, ooh, I forgot my ID. One attempt, he said it was closed, knowing full damn well it was still open. So by the time he went to go take the test, it came back clean. And then he took voluntary leave while Baylor investigated. He went through psychological evaluations and passed. So 3 weeks later, he was cleared, but he was told to stick to minor outpatient procedures. Kirby had been asked to help Summers to try and survive. When he saw the damage between Morgulov and Summers, Kirby, the vascular surgeon, was like, nope, that's it, final straw. This is awful. Those two injuries occurring so close together are career enders. On Summer, he completely destabilized Summer's upper cervical spine, essentially decapitating him. So now Kirby's got beef with Baylor Plano because now Duntsch is allowed back into the OR unsupervised, and the next day he operates on Kelly Martin. Kelly Martin would be the last victim at Baylor Plano. She was scheduled for a simple nerve decompression. So simple, Baylor officials must have probably thought, hey, he's okay to be in there alone. Should take maybe an hour max. Okay, well, the surgery blew past 1 hour to 2 to 3. Midway through, her blood pressure starts crashing. Her heart rate increases. They're able to finally close up the incision. But in PACU, they notice that Kelly's legs are mottled. They look like kind of like this marble. She woke up crying. She's clawing at her legs. She's screaming. It is so bad. They had to sedate her again, right? Well, Kimberly calls the office manager and her friend, BJ Ellison, to tell her that Kelly ended up dying. They said allegedly due to an allergic reaction to anesthesia, but the autopsy showed a massive amount of blood in Kelly's abdomen. Duntsch had punctured a major vessel near her spinal cord, so while she lay there sedated in the PACU bed, she was bleeding to death. Next day, Duntsch had to take another drug test, but it came back diluted. 3 days later, he had another test, and it came back clean, but cocaine takes, 2 to 4 days to clear out of your system? So Baylor investigates, and then they finally decide that he does not meet the standard of care for Summers or Kelly. So they didn't actually fire him or report him to any state or federal authorities. After Kelly Martin's death, Kimberly quit. Kim left the office, and she broke up with Duntsch. Duntsch moved on. Baylor kicks him out. But that didn't stop him from becoming someone else's problem. And the crazy thing was there was a number of physicians that were calling the Texas Medical Board saying, this guy's an idiot. He is incompetent. He cannot operate, doesn't even look like he's trying. And they can't tell if he's trying to operate and help these patients or trying to hurt them on purpose. So in 2012, he didn't have privileges to work at, any hospital yet. Kimberly's gone. And there was a rumor that Kimberly coached him through some of the surgeries. He actually showed up to her house one night at 2 o'clock in the morning, banging on the windows, kind of a rough breakup. So Duntsch is not having a ton of business, right? People are basically just coming in, sitting on their phones, talking BS and getting paid to do so. The few patients that they did have come in, he would pass off the lack of privileges as, I'm waiting for the approval from a certain hospital because they have all of the up-to-date technology and the newest stuff. He was stringing people along who needed surgery, lying that he was going to open this billion-dollar clinic with a surgical center, and oh my God, it's going to be amazing. Okay, well then he gets on with Dallas Medical Center. He literally only lasts a week at Dallas Medical Center. His first victim was Floella Brown, a 64-year-old woman, July of 2012. She needed to have a removal of hardware and a fusion. She was having some issues from a previous surgery, so Duntsch had to remove the hardware. 20 to 30 minutes into the surgery, she started losing so much blood. It came up, out of the wound, soaked the drapes, and onto the floor. Duntsch cannot see the spine. He's telling the surgical tech, keep sucking, I can't see the spine. They're throwing laps, into the kick bucket that normally the laps are like kind of splotchy, maybe pink, but these are soaked in dark red blood. The surgery took longer than normal, and they just admitted her to the surgical floor afterwards. Floella's husband visited and noticed that, she's not right. She's very fidgety. She's not quite herself, anxious. So he comes in the next morning at 5 a.m. to find her completely deteriorated. She starts convulsing, and he runs out to get help, and they end up having to send her to the ICU. Eventually, Floella does get transferred to another hospital, but she never regains consciousness. Duntsch had punctured and blocked the major artery in her neck with a misplaced screw, and she was declared brain dead, eventually to withdraw care, and she passed. So the day after Floella's surgery, Duntsch has to work on Mary Eford. Okay, so at this point, everybody and their brother in the OR knows what happened with Floella, right? Nobody can get a hold of him. No one, they're paging, texting, calling, nothing. Okay, well, they're figured, okay, he has a surgery scheduled at 7 a.m. Mary Eford, here we go. Okay, he doesn't grace them with his presence until 7:45, but catch this, okay? He's got like 2 days worth of stubble on him. That's not normal. He's got pupils that are pinpoint. He hardly seems to blink, and he looks like shit. So he was wearing the same scrub pants for 3 days in a row, and it's only noticeable because he's got a nickel-sized hole in the butt cheek, per Kyle Kissinger, the nurse. So Duntsch continues with Mary. He's not going to go check on Floella, but he seems really distracted in this surgery. So an hour in, he turns to Kyle and he goes, hey, I want to do a craniotomy on Floella. Kyle's like, nah, bud, that's not possible. You're not authorized. This hospital's not authorized, and we have no proper equipment or tools or anything. Duntsch says, yeah, I'm in charge. I'm a doctor. You're a nurse. I know what I'm doing. Just get it scheduled. Kyle said, nah. Duntsch pulled a Karen. Go get your boss then. So Kyle returns to the OR with supervisors, and they tell him the same thing as Kyle. Okay, mid-procedure, Duntsch breaks scrub, leaves the OR to go arrange for Floella's transfer. Straight up left the room, Mary's spine still open and exposed. So the rest of the team, they looked for this screw that was located in Mary, and they could see it in the x-ray that it did not go into the spine. It went into the muscle. So 15 minutes later, Duntsch comes back and says, no, the screw is right where it needs to be. The x-ray is wrong and lying. Okay, the x-ray tech says, hey, normally I take like 5 to 6 images. I took 20. Okay, I do not like what I'm seeing. The cage is off to one side. Duntsch says, I've done a fucking visual. I can see where it is. You don't have to tell me. So he kept putting in and removing. He's basically drilling over and over and over and over. So towards the end, he ends up screwing into the tailbone, and it's so awkward that like everybody in the room is like, I've never seen anything like this. Okay, once he gets that screw into the tailbone, he throws his hands up. I can just leave her like this. She'll be fine. Boom, surgery done. So day after, hospital admin sends an email to Duntsch like, hey, how was your patient from yesterday? I went on rounds and I heard that you might be taking her back to surgery on Monday. He writes back, yep, everything's fine. Returning to surgery Tuesday. Okay, Mary lost a third of her blood during the operation, and she woke up in unbearable pain. She also can't move her legs or turn over in bed. She was bawling from how badly it hurt. Kyle, the nurse, felt so bad. He went to go see her afterwards and asked, hey, can I be in your second operation? He was feeling guilty that, yeah, he didn't do the surgery, but she got hurt under his supervision. Hospital admins reached out to a known neurologist, Dr. Robert Henderson. He is highly respected in the Dallas community. He was so surprised, though, that hospital admin was the one that called him to correct Mary Eford's surgery, as normally it's the surgeon who calls for, someone to fix it up if they can't do it. She can't wiggle her toes, she can't move her legs, so Henderson looks at the imaging and the notes written by Duntsch, and he agrees that, yeah, the procedure that he wrote down is correct. But once he gets looking inside of Mary, he sees Duntsch did nothing of what he said he was going to do. He basically did a whole different procedure. Henderson takes her back to the OR. Duntsch was completely incompetent. That is the only thing going through his head. So he saw that what Duntsch had done, and he had the nurse turn on a recorder, and he starts dictating as he is cutting and going through the surgery. He's like, I know this shit's going to go to litigation for malpractice. I want evidence. There was a screw just sticking up through the spinal canal, flopping around, attached by a rod to the screw above, right? The screw is solid. The rod is supposed to be solid. It was not. He tugged on it and it pulled out so easily. Underneath, he's finding more damage, more hardware in places it shouldn't be. There was another screw jabbing directly into the spinal canal. The same screws sliced nerve that controls the leg and one of the legs and bladder. There was at one point a nerve that had no nerve root. He traced it back to the spine and he was seeing fluid coming out. Yeah, that nerve root had been amputated, the one that was used to control the legs, and that's why she was paralyzed. He realized Duntsch hadn't even been operating in the right area. Like, he knows book-wise what to do, but this guy obviously has no idea. Is he an imposter or just stupid? So Henderson decides he's got to do something. He took the vow, do no harm. He starts looking into Duntsch's background. The hospital revoked his privileges, but there's nothing in place to stop him, right? The easiest way to get rid of a doctor without dealing with the lawsuits, lawyers, and backlash from the public and patient is just to have them silently disappear. B.J. Ellison, she quit right after Floella Brown. She called every patient she could and all of the hospitals he had applied to and warned them, do not let this man operate on you. Do not let him anywhere near you. Do not let him near any patient. She did not want him to have privileges anywhere for fear of death or paralysis for these patients. So Henderson, all this time, is still investigating Duntsch. He's asking questions. He calls the fellowship supervisor, Kevin Foley, in Tennessee, and he's asking, like, was there anything alarming or any issues with this guy? Kevin's like, nope, he's a bona fide MD and PhD. But looking at Duntsch's record, he did spend more time in the lab than the OR. So one surgery that hadn't gone so wrong was Shirley Mock. Shirley says she had surgery and she was discharged with less pain than when she came in with. But a few months later, she had a follow-up and they did, x-rays, exams, and x-rays came back and she could see fragments of metal to the side and like all of these bone fragments. And Duntsch is like, oh my gosh, you've had a fall. She says, nope, I have not. He goes, yeah, you had a fall. He's very adamant. Okay, well, she was very adamant that she had not fallen. And he's like, yep, nope, now you need a second operation. We got to go emergency ASAP, but we're going to do this at a different hospital. She was like, okay, why? And he says, oh, well, Southampton Hospital has the most modern equipment for him to use. Okay, Shirley and her husband nearly flipped out. This is a very poor area. It's not a fancy hospital. It's not a fancy area. There's no fancy equipment, but hey, the staff will make up for it. When Shirley and her husband arrived, they said it should have been condemned 20 years earlier. Surgery took 6 hours, twice as long as the first one, and she needed blood. When she woke up, she was in so much pain, she thought she was dying. She cannot describe it. Her back was absolutely killing her. And the weeks that followed, like pain prescriptions would not take that pain away. And that's sad saying that that's a surgery that didn't go so wrong. So there is something called the National Practitioner Data Bank that was created in the 1980s to keep up with Americans' worst doctors to protect the public and prevent doctors from going state to state or hospital to hospital. Now, hospitals are the only ones that can see this. So if Baylor would have fired him, they would have been required to report Duntsch to this data bank. Instead, in April 2012, they just gave him a letter of recommendation. It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. It was just saying that he left on good terms and all of the investigations have been closed. So they basically saved their own ass, kicked the can down the road to the next hospital to deal with him. Now, there is a watchdog group called Public Citizen. They did a study to see how often hospitals report or shuck off doctors to different places. They found more than half of the hospitals in the country have never reported a single doctor. Baylor didn't. Dallas Medical didn't. The crazy thing is, Methodist Hospital finally did. He didn't even work there, but he applied. They found out what Baylor had found out, and they said, oh, hell no. They reported him. So Kay Van Way, she's a Dallas malpractice attorney that would represent more than a dozen of Duntsch's victims, explains that if Baylor had fired and reported him, they would be thrown in with a bunch of legal bills from patients. Then Duntsch wouldn't be able to get practicing privileges anywhere, and he can turn around and sue Baylor for ruining his reputation. They don't have enough evidence, blah, blah, blah. And he could sue them for like $2 million. And so obviously, like, this isn't something that, is going to happen, but it's a possibility. So this fear of lawsuit and the culture of silence is unreal. And that's where I'm going to leave you guys for this episode. This is part 1. We're going to have to do a 2-parter just to make sure that I don't yap your guys' ear off for a full-on hour, because I can totally do that. So we'll come back next week and we will cover part 2. We'll cover the last few victims, the last place he worked at. He completely crashes out, so we're going to cover that. And then the trial, everything leading up to it, and the conviction. Make sure you guys join me next week, and I'll see you then. Okay, love you. Bye.